My name is Tracy. Standing in the entryway of my now quiet house, I'm still reeling from the events of this morning. The door had just closed with a decisive click, and the movers were taking the last of their things out. The locksmith's van sat patiently at the curb, ready to change the locks. I hadn't just won the battle for my house, I'd reclaimed my life. This all started when my dad, Mr. Thompson, decided to introduce me to his fiancée, Lisa. Lisa was a socialite in her mid-30s, used to getting her way. She had a family background of old money, but she was more about appearances than true substance. My dad, on the other hand, was a hard-working man in his late 50s who had always been a bit too quick to please others. One day, when I came home from grocery shopping, the mood in the house was thick. The grocery bags were cutting into my fingers, and I could sense something was wrong as soon as I stepped through the door. I saw the stairwell gallery I had painstakingly set up, with every frame as straight as a soldier. It was a beacon of order in the chaos that was about to unfold. As I set the bags down, Dad and Lisa were there. Dad's air was thick with a sense of entitlement, thinking he could make decisions about my house just because of family ties. I took a deep breath and said, "I own this house." Dad laughed dryly, not a real laugh but a dismissive one. "Don't be dramatic. We're family. Families adjust." Then Lisa appeared at the top of the stairs. She had on an expensive-looking cream-colored dress, and a diamond ring sparkled on her finger. She walked down slowly, the smell of her designer perfume filling the air. "We'll make this easy," she cooed. "Your room is sunnier. I need the sunlight for the baby. Doctor's orders. You can take the den." I was stunned. The den. I had converted it from an old storage shed years ago, going through all the trouble of getting permits and doing the renovation myself while Dad was too busy misplacing his keys. I said, "The den has no closet." Lisa just smiled and replied, "You're resourceful. You'll figure it out." I knew then that I had to take a stand. I slid the deed folder out of my tote bag and placed it gently on the hall table. "We won't be doing this your way," I said firmly. Dad's jaw tightened. "You're not pushing a pregnant woman out." I retorted, "I'm not pushing anyone, but no one pushes me." Dad then threatened me, saying, "Then you can leave. Tonight." I looked at the faint pencil marks on the dining room wall from when I measured for new baseboards. I inhaled deeply and felt a sense of calm wash over me. "I'm not leaving," I declared. "And if she's moving in, she'll be the first tenant in history who signs a lease she doesn't get to write." I took the deed folder to the kitchen and laid it on the island. I opened my laptop and started pulling up the property records. Lisa came down the stairs, sipping a cup of my coffee. "Good news," she said brightly. "We've decided you'll be better off somewhere closer to work. A fresh start." I replied coolly, "I work from this house." I let the tension in the room build as the little spinning icon on my laptop worked in my favor. Dad said, "You should start packing now. We'll help you move by the weekend." I looked up at him, calm as ever. "That's generous, but I'm not going anywhere." "You are." I rotated the laptop so they could see the screen. My name was clearly shown as the owner of record, followed by the mortgage statement, all payments up to date and made from my account. Dad's face hardened. "That doesn't change anything. We're family. Families share." I leaned forward and said, "No. Families respect boundaries. Tenants follow rules. You're about to be one or the other." After that, things just got worse. A couple of mornings later, I woke up to the sound of my dresser drawers being opened. I stepped into the hallway and saw Lisa, halfway in my room, holding my winter coat and a trash bag. "Thought I'd help you get a head start," she said in that sickly, sweet voice. I crossed my arms and said, "That coat's worth more than your engagement ring. Put it back." She flared her nostrils and said, "Your father and I have been talking. You've been here too long. It's not healthy for a grown woman to cling to her childhood home." I laughed softly. Funny. I was thinking the same thing about grown women moving into homes they don't own. Dad appeared, trying to mediate. Tracy, you're making this harder than it needs to be. She's pregnant. She needs comfort. We all need to compromise. I repeated, compromise? That would require both sides giving something up. So far, all I've heard is you taking. Dad frowned. This isn't about taking. This is about family. I stepped closer to him and said in a low voice, then you should have remembered that before you tried to evict your own daughter from the home she bought. Lisa tightened her grip on the trash bag. We're not going to be bullied out of what's fair. I smiled slowly. You're right. I don't bully. I document. I started documenting every single invasion of my space. Every time Lisa moved my things or rearranged the house, I took pictures and logged the date and time. By the end of the week, they stopped pretending to be polite. Lisa's expensive shoes were by the front door, and her designer coat hung on the rack I'd made. Even the mail on the counter had her name on it. One evening, I came home to find the living room completely rearranged. My comfortable sofa was pushed against the wall, and in its place was a brand new, ostentatious rocking chair. This will be the baby's spot, Lisa announced from the kitchen. I set my keys down and said, the baby's not born yet, but you're already making it hers. Dad stepped in, looking weary. Tracy, she's nesting. It's natural. I didn't say a word. Instead, I went to the bookshelf and pulled out a thick envelope. Inside was a lease agreement I'd drafted with their names already typed in as tenants. I slid it across the counter to Dad. What's this? He asked, frowning. Options, I said evenly. You can sign and pay rent, or you can leave. Either way, it's legal now. Lisa's mouth dropped open. You can't be serious. I replied, dead serious. And before you say anything about family, remember, you stopped treating me like family the moment you told me to get out of my own house. As the weeks went by, the situation became more territorial. I'd find Lisa's laundry in my dryer, and my spices were all mixed up in the pantry. One day, she even moved my office chair to the garage to make space for the nursery. I didn't say a word, I just continued to document everything. One afternoon, I came home early and overheard Dad and Lisa in the backyard. Dad was pacing, ranting, she's bluffing. She wouldn't dare kick us out. Not her own father. I opened the sliding door and stepped outside. You really want to test that theory? I asked. Lisa smirked. You think a judge will side with you over a pregnant woman? I didn't hesitate. Yes. Especially with a signed lease you refused to honor. Her smirk faded, and I saw a flicker of doubt in Dad's eyes. As the days went by, I could feel the tension mounting. On the 42nd day of my silent countdown, a delivery truck pulled up, and they brought in a huge, expensive crib. Lisa didn't even look at me as they set it up in my bedroom. I leaned on the doorway and said casually, you know, it's funny you're putting that there. In 30 days, you're going to have to take it apart again. Lisa froze and asked, what? Dad came in and said, Tracy, enough. We told you. I turned to him and said calmly, 30 days, Dad. That's when the notice expires. That's when the locks change. That's when you're no longer my problem. Lisa insisted I was bluffing. I stepped into the room, ran my hand over the crib, and said, the difference between us? I don't bluff. I file. The color drained from her face, and Dad shifted uncomfortably. On day 29, the air in the house was thick, like the calm before a storm. I came home to find Lisa on the phone in the living room, saying in a hushed but urgent voice, she's not serious, no. She can't. When she saw me, she quickly turned her back. Dad came in with 2 mugs of coffee, one for him and one for Lisa. Dad said, Tracy, you've made your point. Now, let's be reasonable. I set my bag down slowly. Reasonable was you staying in your own place. Reasonable was you asking before moving her in. We're way past reasonable. Lisa narrowed her eyes. You're going to throw out your own father? I looked her straight in the eye. I'm going to remove 2 people who've made it clear they don't respect me or my home. Biology doesn't give you a free pass to treat someone like a guest in their own life. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, lit only by the glow of my laptop, and pulled up the final paperwork. Move out order, lock change authorization, and a security deposit refund. I signed each page steadily, knowing that tomorrow was the day I'd take back my house. On the morning of the 30th day, the movers arrived at 8 a.m. Sharp. The sound of their boots echoing through the hall and the tearing of cardboard filled the space that used to be filled with Dad's voice. Lisa appeared first, looking disheveled. You can't just. I interrupted her. I can, and I have. Everything you own will be packed and delivered to the address you provided for the deposit refund. She trembled, saying, We don't have another address. I looked into her eyes for the last time. Then you should have thought about that before you tried to take mine. Dad came in, his shoulders slumped. He just looked around the half-empty living room, realizing too late how wrong he'd been. When the last box was carried out, I walked to the front door and held it open. They crossed the threshold, the movers following with the rest of their things. As soon as they were gone, the locksmith got to work, and the door closed behind them. I stood there for a long time, listening to the quiet. That night, I lit a single candle in the living room. The air smelled of fresh paint, and I could finally breathe. Some victories don't need an audience, and this was one of them.